Talk. I'm Amber Hines, CEO of Equalize Digital.
And I'm Zach Katz, founder of GravityKit and Trusted Login.
And today we are going to be talking about gathering and learning from customer feedback.
This is WP Product Talk, a place where every week we bring you insights, product marketing, business management and growth, customer experience, product development, and more. It's your go-to podcast for WordPress product owners by WordPress product owners. And now, enjoy.
So, gathering and responding to customer feedback is quite possibly the single most important thing we can do for our businesses. It's the reason our businesses exist. It's the reason our products exist. Steve Jobs said, you've got to start with the customer experience and work backward to the technology. Bill Gates said, your most unhappy customers are your greatest source of learning. And if those two can agree, then you know it's something good. So we've invited Ben Gabler today, CEO and founder of Rocket.net, to discuss customer feedback with us. Ben, welcome to the show. Please introduce yourself and what you do.
Thanks for having me. My name is Ben Gabler. I'm the CEO and founder at Rocket.net. Going on year 22 in the hosting industry. So definitely seen a lot and been around the block and dabbled my fair share in SaaS companies as well. So, I am super excited and passionate about this topic. I absolutely love talking to customers every single day. And it's always fun when they get shocked to see me in chat or on our help desk. But, super excited to be here and really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you here. And I know for everyone who saw the preview, you might have noticed that originally Matt was supposed to be here. He wanted us to pass on his regrets. Unfortunately, he's sick today, but we're super excited that Zach jumped in along with me to chat with you.
Yeah, and if anybody listening is ever interested in discussing customer feedback loops and things like that, ping Matt Cromwell. He is always game to talk about this stuff. And ping any of us, I think, because it's a great topic. And personally, for why it's my experience with this is Gravity View is my main product, and that was based on customer feedback. They said we wanted a way that to display entries in Gravity forms and on the front end of a website. And I looked it around, and there was no way to do it. I said I could do this, and I asked for feedback on it at every stage, and just kept on adding features, and finally got to a place where I had a product. So, I don't know anybody in the WordPress space who doesn't kind of work this way too. It's a really common framework for how we build our products, is just hearing customer feedback. So I think this topic is huge and very important to talk about.
Yeah. What do you think, Ben? Why do you think this topic matters for product owners?
So it's interesting. I always get it confused whether it's Henry Ford or Steve Jobs. I think Steve Jobs had some version of this quote, but the old saying, people don't know what they want until you show them, right? I think that's half true. For example, at Rocket.net, if you would have asked somebody if they wanted an edge first approach to WordPress with full page caching and a WAF and everything, they wouldn't have said that. But when you can kind of show them that and what it can do, then yes, now you look around in the market, kind of having an enterprise CDN is sort of a de facto standard on a lot of the managed providers out there. But that only goes so far. So what we did is we kind of created this foundation to break into the market with a unique set of features and a really unique selling prop. And then we started listening to customers. And that's where our platform just really started to accelerate, as well as our growth, is when you don't just talk to customers, but you actually listen. Since day one, we've had a customer feedback board inside of our portal, accessible at any time for customers to tell us what they would like to see out of the platform. So I think, there is a hybrid of building something unique and innovative to make your mark in the market and start getting some of those users, and then you kind of transition to how can I make this better for you?
Mhm. I'm curious. So you mentioned not just talking to customers, but listening to customers. And I'm curious how you would differentiate, or what are some examples of things that product owners can do that really is listening versus just collecting feedback?
Sure. I think it's the whole actions speak louder than words, right? Like one of the most requested features on our platform, especially as of lately, has been cloning sites. I always try to ask myself as a product owner, would I cancel if I didn't have insert feature here? So as a smaller bootstrapped company over the years, we couldn't build everything customers wanted. So we really had to try and pick and choose exactly what we could prioritize. But when it comes to the listening side of that, I think your actions beyond that conversation is what really implies and enforces the fact that you listen to the customer. So when we ship a feature that a customer has specifically brought up, and you inform them, like, we appreciate your feedback, we listen, here's what we did, right? And even if the initial, maybe you can't build it right away, but reinforcing, whether it's a day later or a week later, and reminding the customer that you were paying attention and listening to them, and this is what your action plan still is.
So one of the things that is a constant struggle for, I think, everybody, when you have a customer support inbox that has constant feature requests or bug issues or bug reports, is taking those items and converting them into actionable items. And there's a term called the XY problem, where customers describe an issue this way, but the actual issue is something else altogether. So Ben, you were talking about, customers wanting a fast website that's easy to manage and powerful and has good security and whatnot. They would describe it that way. They wouldn't know exactly how it would be implemented. I think the Henry Ford quote you were referring to is, if I listened to my customers, they would have a faster horse.
Yep, exactly right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So how do you convert at Rocket.net what you hear from the customers and transform it into something that is an action item for the business?
So I think that's a lot of, whether it's secret sauce or engineering like mindset in our industry, for example, right? Like if you're at a restaurant, that's more of a culinary expert type approach, right? But for our industry, you really take the problem, to your point, and you figure out, reverse engineer it. What would the solution be, right? So our customers want to click as least amount of times as possible. They want to just have a frictionless experience, but underneath it could just be this massive complex code doing that why, right? So I think really just being able to take all of that and reverse engineer it into a solution, I think that's where the magic really is. And because if you look at even our feature request board, it's not going to be, hey, go build site templates to do this, that, and the other. It's going to be, I want to be able to clone websites, right?
And who does that in your organization? Who transforms the request into the action items?
So it typically kind of starts with, it can be anybody. We've had our support staff come up with ideas based on some of the things they're seeing very frequently. But when it comes to a lot of the actionable items that we come out with from this, it's usually a combination of myself and our CTO, Dave Costin. My approach, I definitely have an engineering and architect trait inside of my blood. And I'm able to not go to Dave and say, we need site cloning. I'll go to Dave with a product requirements doc that's heavy, technical, and he'll have to rewrite it all the right way. But it still helps kind of bridge that gap of, that funny scene in Office Space. Well, my job is to take this from the engineer to the customer, right? And it's funny because it's kind of a laughed at role, but it's a very much needed role. Dave fortunately has very good people skills and communication skills, so he has no problem going way down the technical rabbit hole or being able to talk to the customer as well. But typically it's a combination of us, and then again, the team. Like our team has come up with some incredible ideas completely on their own to solve some of the customer needs.
So I think this is a good point to sort of transition into. We like to do story time. And a question that I have for you, Ben, on this is what did it take to build that culture of listening to your customers and coming up with ideas? Because it sounds like you just said like a bunch of different people in your organization do this as part of their role. And I'm assuming maybe there were meetings or discussions about we need to start thinking about that. And I'm curious what your process was from the beginning when maybe you weren't doing as much with customer feedback to now, and how you developed that culture in your team.
I love it. It might sound cliche or what have you, but Rocket is unlike any other business I've ever been involved in my life. The entire team here has such a shared passion for the customer. We work with some amazing people. In some of my career in hosting, you don't always have that same experience with especially support, right? Somebody's messaging for support, they're not in a good state. Something broke or something is frustrating, and it's the nature of it. And there's been so many times where we'll take it. It's not directed at us. It's just somebody venting a little bit, and there's always a follow-up apology. But really the genre of customer that we work with here has been such a difference from the past. It's really helped our team just, and I think me also kind of like being involved with just communicating with customers and kind of leading by example has really gone a long way. But it's a very big thing that I talk about openly to everybody is everything we always do inside of our company will have to bubble up to customer success. So it's like, if I take this action, and it could even be implementing an HR system, right? What happens for the customer? And you always involve the customer. So I think that kind of history and past, and even dating back to when I was at GoDaddy in 2013, we did a thing where we were bringing people in literally off of the street and giving them an Amazon gift card to sit down and use our product, and we would take notes. And that was one of the first times I've ever seen that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is gold, right? So, I think just taking some of that and helping, lead by example with that throughout the organization.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious along this line too. What? No, and I totally lost my train of thought.
All good.
Sorry. Dick, I lost it.
So I have a process. We have a process at Gravity Kit where we try to make sure that every issue that is suggested in a customer support ticket is broken out into a GitHub issue. And every time that issue is referenced in another ticket, or every time we encounter it ourselves, we add a comment to the GitHub issue, and we use that as a sorting mechanism for what to prioritize. But what we have found is that doesn't lead to things being done unless we have what we call a scoping call, where we review those tickets and then we ask ourselves, is this an actionable GitHub issue, where we can look at it and say, okay, we know what needs to be done. So we capture it, but then we take the time to revisit it, reframe it in terms of breaking it down into parts. Sometimes that can spawn multiple other GitHub issues. And we try to tackle them piecemeal and check them off the list. But it's capturing is one thing, and then kind of scoping them is another. And my friend Chris Badgett at Lifter LMS, they use the shape up technique for doing this. There are lots of different techniques and strategies for doing it. Do you subscribe to any particular technique, or do you just have the rocket launch?
Way.
I would say GoDaddy was also a good time for me that I learned a lot of different things, right? That's where I learned about Agile, right? Like that's where I learned Scrum. We had this incredible teacher. His name is Derek Neighbors. I'll never forget him. He's a great guy and just, really did an amazing job at changing waterfall development that everybody's been used to their entire life to this process that everybody hates for the first week or two, right? So, I think the biggest takeaway I had with Derek was, yes, I learned a lot about Agile as it's blogged about, right? But you can't ever just take this template and make it work for your company. Every company in the world is different. And you not only have to really understand the processes and what you're doing, but you also have to understand the why, And again, like, what is this going to do to the team if we try to implement this? So our approach has always just really been, in the anything that's a software based platform, just like ours, proper testing, like our React portal was written by the guy that wrote Visa Checkout. When you take the time to invest in the tooling and the structure and the best practices in building engineering guys, that really helps save a lot of time down the road. So when it comes to our process and how we iterate, I recently just did a big review post where most of Dave's first 6 months at Rocket were just completely stabilizing and improving our existing footprint and platform and APIs for this, expected growth and continued growth. So when we think about how do we take this idea and translate it into a action item, if it's a big enough feature, I'm a huge fan of the press release approach. I write a press release for this first, and to do that, it helps me find my epics or aha moments, right? And different things that I want this to be shown to the market, right? So instead of a big gibberish of technical jargon, like, this is what the market will see when we build this. If it's a big enough thing, regardless of that, every feature, like everything will typically, I'll start with a product requirements doc. Jira actually has an amazing default template that I've used for years. And that's where I go to do my brain dump of processing of all of this data that our customers are giving us or the market's giving us, or even just ideas we come up with. So we kind of try to start with that approach. The press releases first if it's big enough. If not, the product requirements doc is typically and then we just pull from there and kind of start talking about it. And Dave and I will have a call. We'll go over it. Ryan Flowers and I will have a call. The Chad and Jeff, like, we all kind of just openly talk about these things and let them blossom into the final result. So I don't know what that process is called. I don't know if there's a blog post about it, but it works really well for us. And I just find that in every company I've ever been involved with, communication between the team and the customer, you'll find your way. And we're not a big corporate company, so we don't have some crazy structure and cadence that we have to hold ourselves to, so it's
Sometimes
just been a
it's
natural.
Being smaller because you have more flexibility and it's much easier to make pivots quickly. So I remembered what I was going to ask, and I think I'm curious for both of you, the answer on this one. Both of you mentioned the process, right, of taking customer feedback from support tickets and translating that. But the interesting thing about customer feedback from support is, as you mentioned, Ben, those are people that are typically experiencing a problem or are unhappy. And if we only gather customer feedback from support, we're missing out on feedback from all of the people who have never contacted us, who maybe really like the product, but might have a preference for it to do something else, or who don't need anything else from the product. But if we talk to them, we could learn things about maybe what brought them to the product that we could translate into our marketing to attract more people like them who will require no support, right? And maybe be very good customers for us. So I'm curious, do either of you have anything in place to gather customer feedback outside of support channels?
So I have a secret tactic I'm happy to share.
Oh yeah, what is that?
All right.
So in the very beginning of Rocket, especially in the hosting industry, it's hard to kind of get out there and get your brand seen and things like that. So I kind of took an approach where I looked at other people's feature request boards and, like, what are customers in the market asking for and what are they not getting from their provider, right? So it's I did this back in the day when we were building customer service software. I went and looked at Zendesk's feature request board, like, what are they not delivering on and how many votes does it have? So I think there's ways that you can go out and seek some of these problems that exist in your market with just some creative digging. And then on the flip side of that, I love Matthew Prince's approach or Dane at Cloudflare, where they'll post birthday week's coming up. what would you like to see? And they kind of create an open forum where people can chime in, or, I like throwing a tweet out there that we'll just say, what do you, we have something big coming. What do you think it is? And then you start to get this totally, unfiltered feedback from customers, other followers in WordPress. And, I engage a lot of conversations at WordCamp. Is a great spot, and not even customers. Half the time I won't even mention my company name. I mean, sometimes I have this on so people might know now. But it's just creating conversations in your ecosystem and looking for opportunities to solve real world problems. But then, of course, the feature request board, we use a software called Canny. It's been around for quite a long time. I absolutely love it. And it's just it's a spot where customers know they can go and mention these things. And, I think creating that open forum and not being shy and being transparent with it, like, here is all the requests. Do any of these resonate with you? So, I think that's one way to handle it. The other side of outreach can be tricky. Some customers don't want to be bothered. Some don't mind it. So I'm sure, like every business, we've built a close relationship with some customers where we like the internal term friendly. That's somebody that, hey, what do you think of this new idea we're working on? Or, hey, what do you think of that? And then start to gather some feedback that way. So I think proactive research online is a great one that you can do without bothering anybody. And then, just selectively looking at, maybe a poll or something like that.
What about you, Zach?
We at Gravity Kit, when we receive a good feedback or somebody's excited about what they're able to do with our tools and they let our support team know, we tag that, and then we follow up with them asking if they're interested in having a case study done about what they're doing. And I find as the product owner for Gravity View, whenever I watch people use the product, it pains me. It pains me because no software is ever done, no website's perfect, and I hate to watch it. And it's so valuable to see how our customers use our products. So I like to hop on calls and ask them to show me around their system. And
Love that.
It's never how I want it to be. It's never the path that I say is the right path. No, it's the path of desire. And we need to make that path better and more obvious so that whatever hacks they've implemented to make things work the way that they think it should work out of the box, we need to make them simpler. Make it a setting, make it a button, make the button bigger, make it so clear. That always comes out every time I do a call with anybody. So I added a consultation call, like a 20-minute Zoom call link at the bottom of our onboarding emails that says, hey, if you want to talk to Zach, here's a link, schedule a call. And every time I do that, I learn something new about our customers. I learn something new about what they're trying to accomplish and how they're probably not doing it the way that we had thought they might. And it gives us great feedback.
Yeah,
I love the fact. Sorry, go ahead, Amber.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I know I've talked about this in some of our other WP Product Talk episodes, but for not our lowest paid tier, but our higher paid tiers, they get a 30-minute call with me as an onboarding call. And it's interesting, very few of them show up being like, I don't understand how to install or activate the plugin or whatever, right? Like they've already done that and they want to talk really specific about it. Or what's interesting is sometimes they talk about, so my product is an accessibility auditing plugin. Sometimes they don't even talk about something with the plugin, but they want to spend 30 minutes talking about business and how they can use our product to grow their own business. So we talk about like selling accessibility and
Sure.
things like that are not literal technical how to do this thing. And it's been really eye-opening to see like what people come to those calls and ask for.
And that's gold, because those are blog posts you should be writing, or
Probably.
like videos you could. Sorry, the word "should" is I regret saying that. You could be writing.
No, I think you were right. I should be.
If your customers are talking about it, you're learning about your customers and what they're thinking about when they're using your product, which is exactly the point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on top of that, you're also I don't know. I think I did a podcast the first week of January, and the last question he asked me was, "What do you want to be known for?" And really, it's remembered for, and it's really like I want to be remembered for giving back to the community. Like, yes, we're all here to make a living, but I want the solutions that we build to really make an impact and really change things. So as much as you look at your plugin as your product, you're part of your product too, and you're able to really help a business succeed, not just because of the code in your product, but because of you, right? So I love that, and I think I love having the Zoom link, for the call, because I'll respond to tickets and people will be like, "Did the CEO really just reply?" Right? And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I did," and I fixed it, so. And they're like, "That's so awesome. Like, thank you. Like, I appreciate it." And like, we just had somebody sign up and they messaged me on my Facebook, and we're not friends on Facebook, but really sorry to bother you, and had a concern about PHP my admin. I was, no problem. I said, I can reassure you this is not an issue, this, that, and the other. Then they emailed me thanking me. My inbox is always open, and I'm always talking to customers. And I think that's such an important thing. Like the first thing we even do, like when we onboard somebody new, is like, here's the product, log in and use it, right? And it's the same, like just having that open channel of communication with your customers, no matter how big or small you are. Like when I was at GoDaddy, I spent weeks in the call center taking calls, and people were like, "You're nuts. What are you doing in here, senior product manager? Why would you be in here with us?" And I'm like, "So I can understand the problems," right? Within the first phone call I was on, I was like, "We should not be saying that. We should be doing this," and it's just a matter of like, that's what makes a good product manager, right? Is understanding the customer, talking to the customer, and knowing the customer, and not being afraid of the customer.
Yeah. And taking that, and that's all worthless if you don't write it down, or if you don't make an action item somewhere. Like I've fallen prey to this so many times, where I record the video so that I can show it to the team I record the video that I have with the customer, and because I know that it's just gold, and then I fail to share it with the team. I fail to break it down into items that we can work on, and I regret that every time.
I think that's hard when you're a CEO and you're probably wearing a lot of hats and doing a lot of things, but sometimes it's important to slow down a little bit and remember that, you saved it to, like, if you recorded to your computer, you saved it, it's there. That is one hack I will tell you. Don't record to the cloud. It's extra steps to go download it and then upload it wherever it needs to go.
And one thing that I want to, this isn't related to the topic, but it is the topic for being a product owner, is talking to the customer and listening to them is the best way I've found to cure burnout. Whenever I'm burned out, talking to a customer reminds me why I do what I do, why we do what we do. And it just reconnects me, regrounds me to our mission, which is really nice. And Ben, what I want to be remembered for, I haven't thought about that enough. I know I love that our tools help people accomplish what they, are trying to do on their website. That doesn't mean that's not what I am remembered for item, though. So thank you for that prompt.
Yeah, I love that you've spent time thinking about that, Ben. It's neat. It resonates with me a lot.
I really didn't until he asked me, and I was like, wow. I'm like, like the mission here is, we're not out here trying to upsell our customers all day, every day. We never will sell them something they don't need. If we ever have to get somebody to like an enterprise node, we show them the graph from monitoring, like, look, this is what's happening. Like, we're not making it up. And it threw me off guard a little bit. I was like, wow, what do I want to be remembered for? Like, well, in the sense of this call, like for business, I'm like, I really want to, we sent 2 of our team to WordCamp Nepal, and oh my gosh, they killed it. They had never been to a conference before, never been to WordCamp, and they're on our support team, and they both contribute to core. And hey, we sent them to Nepal. We ended up sponsoring it, providing the shirts were gone, like 400 shirts or something in an hour. And wow. There's pictures of them all over my Twitter. They had an amazing time. And I'm like, you guys are freaking amazing. By the way, start working on your visas now to get to WordCamp US, because you've got to be there. And now we're sponsoring WordCamp Asia because they're going to go, right? And it's just amazing for me. And I want, Rocket.net to be remembered as the company that came in, changed the game with some innovative technology, and continued to drive value for the WordPress, ecosystem and the community. There's so many times I see all this drama and stuff happening, and I get it. It happens everywhere and everything. But I'm like tunnel vision, everything's good. Nothing's ever perfect. But for me, WordPress is not going anywhere, and I want to continue to make a positive impact, for our customers.
Yeah.
So Ben, I want to bring, I have a question about something you said like 20 minutes ago, where you were talking about internal tooling and making things better that are invisible to the customer. And I constantly struggle with spending too much development resources on building stuff that we use to facilitate our processes that aren't necessarily customer facing. Do you distinguish from that? Like, how does that how do you integrate? How do you resolve that conflict between or is it all just improving things for the customer in your eyes?
So I'll give you an example, right? One of our team members wrote, we have a lot of internal tooling, and one of the things they wrote is you can literally, I won't mention names, but any hosting company that comes to your mind in the managed WordPress space, we have a command to migrate off of their platform, right? So yes, that makes our support, engineers' life better, but at the same time, it also saved probably 30 to 45 minutes, if not longer, for the customer as well. So even though that's an internal tool that we use and the customer never sees it, they actually do, because we're able to just migrate sites faster than ever with sanity checking in there, right? Like we actually run some WP CLI commands after to make sure we don't get like a database error, make sure everything aligns, we automate a lot of that. So, something like that is a good example of you guys maybe focusing on tooling that you only see, but the end result, improving an internal process, will affect your customer in a positive way.
Yeah. So one thing I've done, and I don't know if either of you do this, but this is something that we added after CobblePress this fall, which is on our receipt page for after someone purchases, which for us is an EDD. I just added a form at the top. So it's like a 1-question gravity form that says, what in your life brought you to Accessibility Checker? And it's interesting because I was like, I'm going to put this here. I don't know if it tricks people because it's above the receipt, and depending on your fold, the field is big enough that you don't see much of the receipt. And so maybe people think
you don't get your receipt unless you fill out the form
to get the receipt, but they could just scroll down. But like everyone pretty much, or like a huge percent of people fill it in. And that has been really interesting for me to like hear the problems that are bringing people to us. And I don't have either of you done any of that. And I'm still trying to figure out what we can do with that. How much of it is related to features versus marketing or other communications that we put out. I haven't figured out yet how to totally act on all of this information that I've been getting. But I don't know if either of you have done something similar. And if so, how do you take that very first like feedback the second they make the purchase, and how much credence do you put on that when they haven't even opened the product yet?
Typically, we use Hotjar, and when the order is completed, we'll ask a little survey. Excuse me, what brought
similar.
you? Yeah, very similar. And I think we get a daily report from Hotjar. We also will ask if somebody meets certain criteria. Was there something you didn't find on this page, or what brought? There's several different points that we have that on the site to be non-intrusive. We don't want to be annoying and constantly blast a pop-up or anything, but it's completely anonymous. So you end up finding out a lot of useful information because customers aren't afraid to tell you, like, I've heard the support's amazing. It was a no-brainer. I've been watching you forever. We'll hear all these different things. And in this format, it's a little bit different than yours, which I like what you're doing better because you're getting more of an answer. Ours are usually a couple words or a praise, or I didn't find the server specs on your website. So more common stuff that you see from like a web design / developer aspect of how do I make my website better. But then that sign up one that we have has been gold, like just to see why they chose Rocket. And you know, it's been great. And for us, I went into a whole lot of action items outside of us sharing it with the team and constantly reinforcing like this is because of you and your support and how you're helping customers, right? So that's what we have in place at the moment.
Yeah. I will say it's been interesting. There are some people who just put something like website accessibility, right? Like 2 words. But there are also people who have written, I don't know, like 2 paragraphs with probably 5 sentences each, right? Like they've given us really good information,
awesome.
which I was shocked at some of the detail that we get in some of the responses.
And that feedback is again just marketing and SEO gold. That is, if you break down what people say when you ask them what brought you here, that is the search that they
You're speaking
wish
their language, right?
they're speaking their own language. If you quote them directly and not cite them if they don't want to be, and write a blog article with that quote in it, you will rank better for that query. You'll show up better, and that's part of one of the ways that we got started with Gravity View and my other Gravity Forms add-ons was I typed into Google autocomplete, Gravity Forms, and I just went down the top results.
Yeah,
so I
that's
made
a
the
good
Gravity
idea.
Forms Salesforce add-on. I made the Gravity Forms Constant Contact add-on. I made
That's brilliant. See, that's a great idea.
Yeah, almost
Yeah.
like Answer the Public or something, if y'all
Exactly.
know that website. Yeah.
So
go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. So I wondered, one thing that is so easy to do when you're gathering and learning from customers is overreacting to negative feedback. Ben, how do you, and Amber as well, how do you not overreact to customer feedback? What do you do with the negative stuff? That do you prioritize it, or do you just add it to the same queue and priority?
Oh, I hate it. So it's I have
demoralizing.
tried to do a lot better at my reaction to, unfortunately a lot. Like I remember a guy, it's almost like some people are just out to get, attention, to be the odd one outstanding that doesn't like your company, right? Like we had somebody literally blasting us on Twitter because you couldn't click a certain spot in our portal. And I'm like, okay, so like you literally were a customer for, I think it was 6 minutes. You couldn't click one thing. You do say it was super fast and great, but you still why couldn't you just report it to us as a bug or something like that? And I tweeted about it and I let him get the best of me. And it's like, because I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, I'm like so many people could just see this and it's like we look like some buggy, and they knocked our support even because I always get super protective in the sense of I don't want our reps that our team that works so hard to go see some person just blasting them on Twitter and they're like, it's like, man, like that's not cool. Like they actually didn't do anything other than try to help, and it's just one of these impossible people to please. And you look at their Trustpilot and they literally have 21-star reviews they've left people and not one single, you know what I mean? So it's difficult, right? Like I am the first person to tell you, there is no such thing as perfect software. Like my iPhone is full of bugs, but I still spend $1,000 on a new one when it comes out, right? And there's no such thing as the perfect product. There's no such thing as bug free. And it's going to happen. You can't please everybody. But sometimes, whether it's a long day or not enough sleep, it's hard to not take those things to heart and want to protect your team because you're all super passionate about what you do. And I just can't imagine being one of our Rocket team members and seeing somebody say support sucks, right? It's like, what are you talking about? We had over 45,000 chats this year and a 97% satisfaction rate. And it's one of those things. It's very difficult. I've wanted to blog about this several times. I've got like 3 novels I've written for the blog on this, and every time I'm like, no, because I've never left a Yelp review, right? Like I know how damaging it can be to a business, and everybody has a bad day and nothing's perfect. So, I've not published those posts, but they're there, and it's how I vent and get it out into a Google Doc and shelve it and move on.
Yeah. We've had a lot of conversations about instances where, we're a pretty young plugin. We're a really small team. So we don't, some of the big plugins test every release on 20 different themes before they release it, right? They have all these different demo sites that we're just like, we literally, if we did that, it would take, I don't know how long it would take for releases to come out, right? Um, and so sometimes we're just kind of like, okay, this is correct. We released a bug. It sucks. They were mad. They were right. But we also have kind of said we have to be realistic about where we are, and let's talk about what we can try to do to avoid this in the future. But at the same time, like you said, Ben, all software has bugs and sometimes it happens. And, try to do your best not to, but also if somebody gets overwhelmingly angry, then that is more of a reflection on them than it is on you, probably. I do think we've been having a lot of conversations lately as we're talking about feature requests or reports of specific bugs or things like that, and just trying to figure out who we want to target, because there are some very different audiences that we deal with our plugin, like the enterprise, massive government websites that have millions of pages and universities versus the individual small business owner who maybe doesn't even have a developer supporting them. And I don't even know if what they would do with the information our plugin gives them. And then there's a lot of audiences. And so we've been having conversations with trying to figure out some of this, the feedback from certain groups, and just saying maybe it's okay that we accept that this group is not in our demographic right now. Maybe they can be in the future if we grow, but we can't always, just because people are asking for it doesn't mean we can always build it. We, limited resources, limited time. And so we have to sort of assess who is the most important audience to try and reach right now and what do they need, and be okay with the fact that we aren't able to give what everyone else needs necessarily.
Couldn't
What about
agree
you,
more.
Zach?
Yeah, it's so hard. Early on, I really wanted to make sure that everybody was taken care of. And as a business grows, it becomes more and more important to identify for whom you're building the software. And we still struggle with that at times, but saying no is more important as you grow. And that saying no means you get to say yes to things that actually move the needle for your business. So as you gather this customer feedback, we have a great customer. I love talking with him about his passion for what we do and what it enables him to do. And I really want to prioritize. He has very specific requirements, and we can't do it because it would take away from the core of our business. And so saying no is as Apple says, 1,000 no's for every yes. And we're not quite there, but hopefully we say no more than we used to.
Yeah. So I feel like we usually wrap up with best advice, and this might be a good time to transition to that. So Ben, why don't you kick us off? What is your best advice for product owners or product managers around customer feedback?
Sure. I think the best advice is, know your customer. Don't be afraid of the customer. Talk to the customer, and, don't ever lose sight of the customer. There's so many of our competitors that just have gone from being known for the best support in the world to just the exact opposite. And it doesn't matter. It's this huge snowball that's growing, and they make millions and millions of dollars, and it's fine. But our team still gets excited over every single sign up, right? Like it's true. We really do. And you could argue that, we're just under 5 million in ARR, and, we're not so small anymore, right? But we still get excited over every single sign up. We get excited for every demo. We get excited for every engagement. And it's because we love what we do, and we love talking to customers, and we just love what we do. And I think that's super important. I've had stops along the way in my career where I like building software, but I wasn't really into rental property management software, right? So it didn't really hit home like this. Maybe it's a curse, maybe it's not. I've just always been in love with hosting. been doing it forever. Back when I was delivering pizza, I got to do it. And I love it. So, when you can take that passion for something and apply it to your customer and keep that channel open, and exactly what you guys just said is learn how to say no. In the very beginning of any new product, you want as much business and adoption as you can to stay alive, right? Like you will discount, you will give custom deals, and you pay the price later. Honestly, I'm not saying don't ever discount, don't ever do deals. We've done our fair share of them when it makes sense, but saying no is very difficult. But long term, don't stop talking to the customer. Every move you make will affect your customer one way or another. Even if it's something as simple as a PTO request approval, it affects your customer. We don't, I'm not saying don't ever approve PTO. I'm saying, there's a strategy of ensuring you have coverage and again, just back to the customer, always keep that customer as your top priority. Try to organize and structure your efforts around the customer at all times. That doesn't mean the customer is always right. It just really means that what you do is always going to be right for your customers.
Yeah.
How about you, Amber?
So I think my best advice is if you aren't asking for feedback, just start doing it. Either start small, like I did with adding a question as part of your checkout, or maybe set up a form on your website and send an email to your email list and ask people to fill it out. You'll be surprised that some people will come, and it doesn't have to be a lot, but maybe like 4 questions or one open-ended question and a couple of qualitative or quantitative questions where they just have to pick something. And then I always think getting on calls, even though sometimes it feels like when one books and I look at my schedule, sometimes I'm like, oh man, I wish that didn't fill that time slot. I have a lot going on. But every time when I get off one of those calls, I think it is time well spent. So yeah. How about you, Zach?
Well, I used to not do calls with customers because I was a scaredy cat. And for anybody listening or watching who is a scaredy cat, my recommendation, my best advice is don't be afraid of the customer. They want to talk to you in many cases. So be yourself. You don't have to be like, I think many people go through the experience of starting a business and using the royal we when talking about the company, even if it's just you running the company. I found that being myself is the best way to do it. If I use exclamation points and emoji in my responses, the customer knows that that's me communicating. Like it's okay to be yourself as long as you're professional, and don't let the word professional get in the way of you just reaching out to your customer. They will appreciate the personal touch, I'm sure.
Well, that's a wrap. Ben, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you online? Oh, might.
You are muted.
Yep. We might have lost some.
Sorry about that.
All right. Nowhere.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome. I truly love this topic. And it's been great. Our website's rocket.net. Email me anytime, ben@rocket.net. I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn. LinkedIn usually gets pretty hectic, so I don't check everything on there. But yeah, feel free. Inbox is always open, and I am in post status, so I'm usually always around.
Wonderful. So next week, Zach will be on with our co-host Katie Keith. They are going to be discussing PR for WordPress with special guest Adam Weeks.
And special thanks to Post Status for being our green room where we coordinate these calls. If you're enjoying these shows, please do us a favor, hit like, subscribe, smash that button, share it with your friends, subscribe to our podcast, reference this show in your newsletters. And most of all, we hope to see you next week. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.